Our scene opens in slow motion. We see the militia soldier with their blade slamming into a railing. We see the zipline snapping and flailing out into the ever-dark city streets. Two soldiers stand facing Turk, one with a gun aimed directly at him as his rifle falls and clatters to his feet. He is beginning to put up his hands. We also see, in slow motion, Gracie slam into the floor of the abandoned middle building after the zipline was cut. Dust just beginning to rise up from the impact. We see across the way Fishgut looking out of the window of the building where she landed safely, looking over at where Gracie fell, and then looking down. We see one small rain droplet that falls from the sky, and the camera follows it. Down, down, past Fishgut and toward the streets themselves, where we see Ephid and Harlow. Ephid pushes Harlow off of them and sits up, wincing at the pain in their arm. The rain droplet hits Harlow's face as Ephid reaches out to shake her a little bit, pleading for her to wake up. More droplets begin to gently fall, and Ephid, in this moment, there is only you and Harlow. She's not moving. But before we see what happens next, the camera itself is focusing on Ephid's face. We see their mouth moving as if they're saying, "Harlow, get up," but we can't hear them. And as the camera begins to fade to black on this scene, we find ourselves in a flashback.
There's a small room, which is cluttered for how dilapidated it is. The walls have like peeling, faded wallpaper. The floors are cracked, and just dirt floors in some places. But there are shelves and bookcases full of kind of mundane items, some rocks, some springs, a couple books. And in front of a pretty big fireplace, there's an old woman. She's kind of hunched. She has long gray hair. She's missing a few of her teeth, but she's got like the kind of wrinkles that you know she's seen life. And she's seen the bad parts of it, but she's also seen a lot of good and wonder in the world. And she's sitting in a kind of creaky, broken rocking chair and pushing herself, and in her lap there is a small version of Ephid, probably 6 at the oldest. They've got their head leaned on her shoulder, eyes closed, but they're still awake. And they're listening as she speaks in a different language, the same language you've heard Ephid kind of whispering in when they summon whatever things destroy buildings. And she's kind of like weaving these whispers through the air to become almost like wispy interpretations of reality. And at some point she kind of jostles Ephid's shoulder, and they open their eyes and they watch like a couple dancing and turning in these wisps of smoke. And then that kind of fades away, and one of the halves of the couple goes and like lifts a sword. And it's kind of just like an average fairy tale that you tell a kid. But she's telling it with a lot of conviction, like it's fact, like it's history. And Ephid's little crutches are kind of leaned against the cot in the corner. And that's it, really. It's just kind of a memory of a home and a person who are clearly long gone. But kind of a warmth that Ephid has somewhere deep in their memories. The Ephid of the old days, the child Ephid, the 6-year-old-ish Ephid, is still a little dirty, but the kind of dirty that you expect from a kid. Um, a well cared for kind of dirty. Their hair's not really matted. It's still very long, but it's kind of tied back in a little, like, ponytail, and smooth without knots or anything like that. There's some like smudges of dirt on their hands, and their fingers have like grease on them where they've clearly been like toying with some of the items on the shelves. Um, they have like a smattering of freckles still. That hasn't changed. Um, they look skinny because, everyone in this world is underfed, but still like a healthy, healthy enough. They've been cared for, and as we kind of watch them watch the story, they're giggling and smiling, and you can see that they're missing like two of their front teeth. And they're kind of like reaching that child pudgy hand out to play with the wisps as the story continues. And as you see the hand go through the wisps, it transforms into a bigger hand, scarred and calloused, covered in mud and grease, as they reach out to try and shake Harlow's shoulder, and the camera kind of reverses onto their face. And there's kind of a loss of that softness and childishness, even though they're barely 10 years older than they were in the memory. But they've definitely lost the kind of innocence that was there. And their eyes are kind of like filled with tears as they're shaking Harlow's shoulders.
And as we kind of pull out of this flashback, we see the scene that we left, but it's not in slow motion anymore. We see Ephid sitting beside Harlow, shaking her as the rain is beginning to fall steadier to the dirty, dark streets. What is Ephid doing?
Ephid's got one hand just kind of like knotted in a Harlow's jacket, just kind of like jostling her, and keeps kind of like halfway looking around as their other arm is kind of pulled close to their chest. And just, Harlow, wake up, we have to move. And I think they know. But it's really hard to let go of the person who's kind of taken care of, or one of the people who's kind of taken care of you for so long in your life. There's the voice in the back of their head that's saying, okay, you know what's happening, you have to go, you have to move, you have to leave. They're coming, you have to get out of here. But it feels wrong to leave Harlow because Harlow wouldn't leave them. So I think they're just kind of stuck in this loop of, Harlow, you have to wake up, and knowing she won't.
Your voice gets quieter as the camera is pulling up. Kind of an overhead view until we see Fishgut and Gracie, both looking down at Ephid and Harlow on the street below, looking out of windows on opposite sides of this alleyway. Fishgut and Gracie, you look up, you meet eyes for a moment, and then all the audience and Fishgut can hear is her own heartbeat in her head.
Her hand kind of slides to her pants, to a bulging pocket where the cube is, and she kind of graphs it, and is trying to think, how do I use this? I don't know what it is. What can I do to make something happen that will save Harlow, and that maybe maybe we can make that happen again. And Vishkut's mind is just swimming in ideas that don't quite work.
I think as this is happening, we're seeing the ideas playing out in Fishgut's eyes, like in reflections. They're just not quite finished. The ideas just they can't be executed. And then we see, as the camera is getting closer and closer to Fishgut's face, her eyes dart up to see 3 militia guards that are starting to make their way off of the rooftops and toward all of you in various directions. You see some making their way toward a window for Gracie's building, some making their way over to yours. And as they are jumping and you are watching them, we find ourselves in another flashback.
One of the things Fishgut's mind keeps stalling out on, Carter, walking down the stairs a couple hours ago, hitting the trip line, and then the room exploding from something else that was dangerous. And it makes her mind drift back to a time when she was working, before she really knew Harlow, back before she was doing these kinds of dangerous jobs, and back when Fishgut was 14, 15, a young thing running around the docks. Her hair was a lot blonder back then. She spent a lot more time outside. She smells of sand and fish. And we see that she's watching this group of kids who live kind of in this area of the docks. Kids who don't have parents, don't have proper homes, but they do have little errands to run, and they do have jobs to accomplish, and they've become a bit of a part of the ecosystem of the way things work here, but they're not very well taken care of. And Fishgut is standing there watching, remembering everyone's name. She doesn't write them down on a piece of paper. She just has them in her head. And she walks over, carrying a pretty heavy bag. It's got a couple cans in it, some bad food, but also some good food. Pieces of fresh fruit that she stole just a couple blocks over. An actual fresh loaf of bread that she convinced a lady to give to her. She finds Carter trying to make sure that none of the little ones are able to see this exchange happens. She doesn't want them to know that what she's bringing over is food, but she messes up. She's never been so good at noticing those little details. And she feels a little boy start to press a coin into her hand. And when she looks down, she sees it's this dented copper thing. And it's money that she needs that kiddo to keep. She cannot take it. So we see her eyes kind of darting around, trying to look for something, anything else. And she notices a little piece of bent metal caught on his pants. She kind of perks up, smiles down at the kiddo, takes what is a dented, beat up fish hook, just sharp enough to his caught on his pants, but too dull to actually be used anymore. She messes his hair and kind of holds it up to the light so it looks a bit shinier than it deserves to. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Anytime I come around, this is all I want. I've got big plans, you see. They're a huge help. And Fishgut will slide it on to kind of a cord that was empty before, but now has a fish hook on it. She'll muss the kid again and leave. In the present, that single hook she got from the kiddo, there's a bunch of others there. 5 or 6 at this point in time. She keeps telling the kid she has big plans. And it kind of dangles, and we hear a little tinkling sound as that joy from the past turns into panic in the present. Still reaching, trying to figure out what to do.
Pulling out of this flashback, we see Fishgut's eyes move to look across the street again at Gracie, who is one level higher up than she is. Then the camera pushes through the rain and reaches Gracie, who is kind of catching her breath from the unexpected slam into the hard flooring of the empty building. All we hear currently is her breathing, echoing in her own head. Before being able to act, what is going through Gracie's mind? What is Gracie's move?
Gracie, above all else, wants to take care of the people that she is, if not loves, because she doesn't know most of them well enough, but she has an understanding that we are together, and it is her job to keep them safe, especially if Harlow's not there. So she's looking around for the quickest way to get down so that she can fulfill that promise.
As she is looking around, we see her hands grab onto the windowsill. She's kind of leaning over to look down, trying to find the fastest way down, and the camera focuses on her clenching fist as we move into another flashback.
So we begin on the embossed letters of that leather portfolio that we saw in the first episode. It's far too fine for a gutter snipe like her, but it's there in front of her. It's being held by an older woman, her grandmother. You can see the similarities. We can't hear the words the two are saying, but the woman is looking very sternly at the girl, and she is nodding frantically, agreeing to whatever she has to agree to get that book in her hands. The woman finally smiles, and Gracie takes it as if it is the most beautiful, magical thing she has ever seen in her whole life. She is small at this point, certainly smaller than when we know her, and so when she hugs her grandmother, her arms go around her waist. The woman laughs and smiles and kisses the girl on her long, dark braids and sends her on her way, and we see her take out a piece of charcoal and start sketching away. The camera shifts, and we see that book again. We hear the sound of charcoal on paper, and the woman is older now, and Gracie is more grown. The size difference has changed dramatically to the point where the woman looks so small compared to her. She's drawing a portrait, and it's so beautiful it could breathe off the page, and every wrinkle that she's drawing on this page is filled with love. We focus in on the portrait, and a teardrop falls. It's set on a grave next to a posy of weeds that Gracie has plucked off of some side of the road somewhere. She stands at her full height. Her hair is short. Her knuckles and cheeks are purple and green and black from bruises and fights. And she stands and she straightens her cap and she walks away. As she pulls the cap tighter onto her head, those same fists crash into someone's face. He falls. A bag of coin is dropped onto the cover of the leather book, sitting off to the side underneath a jacket. Almost forgotten, but not quite. And finally, we see that same cover sitting forgotten underneath a spare set of clothes in our hideout when we escaped. It's tucked so gently, so safely, that it was not in her reach when they fled. And we zoom out past the book, past Turk's hands, through the stress of the building, as we see Gracie, full grown, panic on her face, trying to be thoughtful, but also wanting to just get down there, staring down where Effet is with Harlow, and looking with utter concern across a fish gut. Gracie is big, and not just for a woman. She is just about 6 feet, massive, broad shoulders, thick muscle, scars and bruises everywhere, though not as bruised as she was, thanks to the magic of the box last time. She wears a disheveled button-down shirt and vest and suspenders, and her sleeves are rolled up. The knuckle dusters are still in her hands because she hasn't had time to take them off. In slacks. Her nose has been broken at least 4 times, and she has solid features: square jaw, thick cheeks, heavy eyebrows, all that, and short cropped dark hair that she keeps slicked back, though in the rain it has become somewhat disheveled and the falling.
And in this moment, as we come out of this scene, Gracie, you see a militia soldier drop in through the window and just completely interrupt your thoughts. They drop into the room that you are in, and they begin bringing up their rifle. What would you like to do?
Gracie has one move that she's real good at, and so she's going to do it. She runs at them, putting her body low, and just drives her shoulder into his solar plexus, and just destroys his face.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I would like, especially for practicing purposes, to roll for this. So
Okay.
you will choose a skill, and I think in this instance, you could either choose fight or move. Something tells me you're going to pick fight. And then a style in which you are doing so.
I'm going to forcefully fight.
Amazing. So what is your fight?
Fight is 7, forcefully is 6.
Damn.
Oh,
Okay.
she's good at one thing.
So add those together. That becomes your target number. And I'm going to say you need Gracie needs 1 success for this.
Yeah. That's an 8 on the dice.
Perfect.
On
Did
one
you
of
roll
the
2?
dice. I did, yeah.
Go
The
ahead
other
and-
is 18.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so that is 1 success. So tell me what this looks like. What do you do to this man?
She's got a lot of feelings right now, and she deals with feelings in not a very healthy way, at least not for other people. And so she drives her shoulder into this person, almost getting underneath the rifle, because once she's in close quarters, he's super fucked. And she basically gets on top of him and just punches him until he stops moving, and then grabs the rifle and starts to head downstairs in the most expedient way possible.
Amazing. I think as soon as your shoulder slams into him, you hear the gun fire once, but then he's just slammed down, the gun clatters, and that's all she wrote. You grab onto the rifle. We see, as you are beginning to try to move down the stairs, we see others kind of scaling down the building, attempting to come into this room, but they haven't made it just yet. Effid. You hear footsteps, and you see out of the corner of your eye militia soldiers running into the alley that you fell into from both sides. You see 3 on one side and 4 on the other. What do you do?
Effid is going to reach into one of Harlow's pockets, and pull out a small, it looks like a old tin can, that's been packed down and packed down and packed down, and it's solid, but it's got a tiny little fuse on it. And they're gonna, with their good hand, they're gonna strike like a flint that they have in their boot on the side of the can so that it sparks. I want to use a choke dust grenade is what I'm doing. They're gonna spark it and then drop over Harlow's body and throw it in the air so that when it detonates, it's above their head. And if it detonates the way they want it to, they're gonna take one last look at Harlow and squeeze her hand and start trying to one-armed crawl out from under everyone, dragging their crutches kind of in their less useful hand.
Okay. So what would you like to roll for this?
Tinker?
I think that
Cleverly.
makes sense. Perfect.
All right. So
What does that make your target number?
5.
All right, I'm gonna say you're gonna need 1 success for this to work how you want it to.
Okay.
If you do not get a success, that
It'll be bad. Yeah, I know.
There is a complication, but it's still, I'll tell you, it's gonna go off regardless.
Okay. Cool. This is also one of my focuses in being explosive. So if it's under a 3, it's a crit.
A critical.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you roll 2 dice,
No, I got a 12 and a 16.
when you need to roll low.
I know.
Amazing. I will say you're all starting with 3 void points. You can spend a void point for I believe an extra die.
It's reroll, create a truth, or gain a critical success instead of a normal one.
Right, so you can re-roll both of them if you want to spend a void point.
Yeah, I'll spend a void point. I
Okay.
think without realizing it, Evid's thrown the thing, they've squeezed Harlow's hand, and as they're waiting for it to go off, they're kind of muttering under their breath in that same language. And like the little wisps are starting to like whip around the can where it's hanging in the air before it drops. That's a 2. That's a crit.
Hell yes. Hell yes. In that case, it kind of surprises you, because you don't hear it when it should be going off. You're kind of covering your face, covering Harlow, and it's not going off, but the camera sees these wisps pushing it up just a little bit further, just a little bit more, and the militia that are running in stop and kind of look up to see what's happening here, and then it all blasts outward, and with it being higher up, it's almost like scattering to hit more of them than it would have previously. And you see immediately they're coughing and kind of covering their eyes, trying to look around.
Terrible. It is soot and dirt from the wharf, so it's just been mixed with fish guts and like whale blubber and just any disgusting thing that you would find like on the ground at a fish market. It's in there, and it's been cooking.
It's been cooking.
And it's now exploded all over these people. And I think Ephid is still kind of muttering those like almost prayers to themselves as they start crawling like one-armed out of there, pulling their crutches with their other arm. I don't think they've called out to either Gracie or Fishgut, so as not to like bring attention to them. And they're just trying to get out of the way, because if they know anything, they know Gracie's coming.
Perfect. So I think we see Ephid under this smoke, kind of crawling, dragging, and we see only like from the knee down of some of these militia guards that you are crawling past. We see one of them like slam into the wall on the other side, coughing, trying to stay up. One of them puts their rifle down to use as like a cane, basically, to hold themselves as they are just retching from the smell. And we see Ephid crawling through. Fishgut, your fingers are tapping this cube, and you're seeing 3 militia soldiers making their way off the rooftops and leaping to climb into the window of the building that you stand in.
How much
I will say
more...
real quick too, you also do see a sudden explosion of one of Ephid's handiwork. You would definitely recognize it.
Fishgut actually stays put, and she pulls the cube out of her pocket, because at this point in time she realizes everyone knows what they have, or at the very least they're coming after them because of something. And when she pulls it out, she takes a moment to hold it in a way where her palm is contacting the side that lit up for her symbol, as Ethan called it, and she holds it, kind of thrusting her hand in the direction of these militia members who are kind of closing in on the area. And she shouts, "Stay back! You saw what this did to those other guys? Knocked them clear on their asses. You don't know what it's gonna do to you? Turn around. Go back to your watchtower or your fancy... Go back. You don't want to deal with us. It's not worth it."
Amazing. And I assume you would like to roll some sort of intimidation.
I think this would be either talk boldly or talk cleverly.
I would accept either one.
Let's go talk cleverly. That's a 12 for them combined.
Okay. And I'm going to say again, for Fishgut, you need 1 success.
Let's go. So I have an 11 and a 2. which is 2 successes.
Amazing. Do you have a focus in any of this?
I'm going to say this is persuade, convince others to do things for you or on your behalf.
Yeah. What's your score in that?
6.
Holy shit. Okay, so that 2 would be a critical success. So you have a success and a critical success, which means now we've reached the point where I need to talk about momentum.
Let's go.
So technically, rules as written, momentum does not carry over to the next scene. I say that's bullshit. We'll carry it over if you don't use it because I don't like wasting cool things. So momentum, you can buy extra d20s, or you can spend 2 momentum to establish a new truth about the scene. It might be beneficial if you want to use your momentum now because you would be gaining 2 momentum, and you can spend both of those if you want to create a truth about this scene for that critical success. Or we can put that momentum in a pool for later. You watch these 3 militia members that are like on the way. As you're holding that cube out, they stop. One of them holds out their hand. They have the rifle, and it's not aimed directly at you at this point, but the rifle is ready, and they're just looking at you with a hand up, like, don't do anything stupid.
I have an idea on what the truth might be.
Okay.
The militia member doesn't know it yet, but his gun is jammed.
Okay. Are we all cool with that? Fantastic. I love that.
Or malfunctioning in some way of your choosing.
Perfect. I love it. So the rifle is out. Don't do anything stupid. And then we cut over to Turk. Turk, you are currently standing on the balcony where the zipline was previously attached, and 2 militia soldiers stand before you. One has their knife slammed into the railing, the other has a gun aimed directly at your chest. Your rifle has clattered to the floor, and you just said the words, "We don't have it, but I can show you where it is." And as your hands are up in surrender, the camera sees a figure move from behind you. And then it sees the butt of a rifle slam out of the darkness and into the back of your head. We see Turk kind of crumble from the impact, and as Turk's face kind of slams into the floor, we're going to go into our last flashback.
I think the last thing that stays in Turk's mind is that the barrel of the gun that was pointing at him, the opening of the muzzle. And so his memory takes him back to the last time he was looking down the barrel of a militia gun. It could be any street in the city, at least in the lower end. And there's a gaggle, a group of, a squad, I guess, of the militia standing around one person. And Turk is among them, but he is standing a little ways away, a little ways forward. And the rest of the militia members have formed kind of this half circle, hemming the entire situation in against the wall of one decrepit building. And Turk has his hands up, but not in surrender this time. His pistol dangles loosely from one finger as his hands are raised, and he is standing across from his commanding officer, a man who is shorter than him, but broader than him, older than him, and certainly meaner than he is. Turk looks just a little bit younger. And on the ground, kind of between the two of them, back pressed against the wall, is just a person, just a guy. I think he is very plain in his features, but I think when Turk looks at him, he sees himself more than anything. They're about the same age. And his commanding officer, he doesn't know if it's the man's first name or his last name. It's the only thing he's ever known to call him. And it's his name is Ballard. And Ballard is looking Turk directly in the eyes. Turk has his head has a tilt of defiance to it. And Ballard says, "I gave you an order, Hancock. And when I give an order, I expect it to be carried out." And Turk kind of sets his jaw again, doesn't make a move, says, "I can't do it, sir." Ballard sighs and pulls out his own pistol, but he points it at Turk and says, "I will say this one more time. Shoot him, or I will shoot you." Turk looks at the gun and looks at the terrified man crouched against the wall and looks back at Ballard and thinks about what it's been like being in the militia, all the things that he has seen and all the things that he has done and all of the ways that he has justified it to himself as just being what you have to do to survive in a place like this. And he is sick of it. And he is tired. And so he fixes his gaze back on Ballard and says, "I can't do it, sir." And Ballard stares him down for a second and then shakes his head. His arm goes out. His target changes. He pulls the trigger and shoots the man who is cowering against the wall dead. And that seems to break the spell. All of the other militia members kind of start to straighten their belongings, straighten their uniforms, busy themselves with sweeping the area, making sure that there was nobody else around, nobody else hiding. And that just leaves Turk standing there with his hands still in the air, pistol still sort of dangling loosely from his hands. Ballard steps in close to him, grabs him by the front of his uniform and pulls him down so that they can speak, and he says, "Frankly, Hancock, I don't care if you can shoot a coin out of midair. You disobey one of my orders again, I will kill you." And then just kind of shoves him back. "Now fall in line." And I think that rings in Turk's ears.
As we come back to seeing Turk's face slam onto the floor, we see the eyes fighting, trying to stay awake. What are the differences in appearance from Turk then and Turk now, if any?
His hair is longer. He is leaner. He has lost weight. He's not as well fed as he was in the militia. He is not as well groomed as he was then. But I think in spite of all of that, there is a light in his eyes that just was not there before.
And in this split second, is Turk fighting?
as he hits the ground.
As he kind of feels these 3 militia looming over him, is he letting it happen or is he fighting it?
I think he's going to try saying one more time. His words are slurred, and he is dizzy and not entirely in possession of his faculties, but he will say one more time because he truly believes that if he can get them to hear him and believe him, then maybe they will just take him and the others will be able to get away. And so he'll say again with his words slightly slurred, "We don't have it, but I could tell you where it is."
I'm gonna have you roll for this. Talk, and then whatever whatever style you would like to do that in.
I think I'm going to talk swiftly. Okay, not a crit, I don't think, unless this somehow counts as firearms. But I got 2 4s.
Okay, all right.
So I guess that is 2 successes.
That is 2 successes. With that, you'll gain 1 momentum. You can either use that now to buy an extra d20 or save it in the pool.
I think save it in the pool. I think 2 successes, in theory, is very good.
Yes. So you do feel one of them like grabbing onto your arms to kind of bring them back and restrain you, but they pause at your words, and you can't quite see them, but the camera sees them kind of looking back and forth to each other, definitely contemplating what you're saying. And then all of you, one at a time for the audience, but all at once. Fishgut, as you are holding out this cube, your left hand, begins to burn and glow. It draws your attention from the hand that is holding the cube, and you kind of glance down at it, and you see the same symbol as the one on the box. The one that seemed to glow when you touched it, your symbol, as Ephid called it, burned into your hand with a blue light and a hot pain. It's burned right into the back of your hand. It glows bright and fast, and when the glow fades, you can still see the faint blue tint to the symbol itself, just on your skin. Gracie, you've noticed the same thing, but it matches the symbol you touched on the box. Ephid, as you're crawling through, you wince for a second, you see the same thing on your hand. Turk, as you're sitting, waiting for these militia guards to make their decision, you see the glow on your hand as you're trying to stay conscious. All of you, your ears ringing, your vision blurs in and out of focus for a moment. You think all of you are going to lose consciousness. And then you hear something else. Almost as if you can hear something stronger and thicker than blood pumping through your veins. I would like for all of you to roll 2d20s. You're adding nothing to this, but your target number is 5. Do we have any successes?
I got a 1, so that's a crit, right?
A 1 is a critical success, yes. Ephid, you see someone comes out of the shadows. No, that's not quite right. Someone is made of shadows. Just out of the corner of your eye, you feel them moving, almost as if this dust that is all around is moving away from this figure. This figure walks over, and you feel them grab onto your arm and begin lifting you up. And as they're doing so, there's this moment of you you don't feel like you ever stop being lifted up. As you're lifted, your consciousness almost continues upward. You get dizzy. Your whole being is just shaking and moving. And as you can feel the heaviness of your body as you do fall unconscious, but this figure scoops you up. The last thing you remember is the feeling of the arms just kind of tightening around you. And shadows begin to come together beside you, Turk, and you hear the sound of the militia soldiers beginning to choke as if they can't draw breath. We're gonna say, Gracie, you are reaching like the door that leads out. You walk out, you see this dust everywhere. But you're noticing the same thing as Ephid. It's almost as if this shadowy figure has pushed the dust away from it, as if it can't reach it. And you see it with Ephid in its arms. Fishgut, you are glancing around. You see the same thing, but from a top view. You see the militia guards that are sitting there kind of look down. They're trying to figure out what's going on. One of them aims their gun at you with a moment of distraction. And you feel something you've never felt before, but something familiar at the same time. You feel Ephid. It doesn't quite make sense, but you feel Ephid. And all at once, this plume of smoke from this grenade seems to rise up and push and crawl through the windows of various buildings. It's almost as if whatever shadow this figure is made of is kind of pushing it and hurting it into various directions. You see the smoke come through and push over to the militia guards that are aiming their guns at you, Fishgut. They begin to choke. One of them brings up their gun directly to fire at you. You hear the click, 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 and they look down at their gun and they're choking, and they just try to cover their arm. The two behind, you see them fall down and begin to crawl out of the room as this one heads over to the window to try to get some fresh air and just falls out. Just completely falls out of the window, lands by Gracie as you are far enough away. You know what this choke dust does. Far enough away from the dust, but you're watching this figure holding on to Ephid, and the longer you look at it, the dizzier you become. It's almost like that feeling right before you're gonna pass out, but without the queasiness. It's just this blur in your mind. And then everything goes dark. I would like for someone to roll me a d4.
I got a 2.
In that case, Ephid. You open your eyes, and you are in total darkness. It takes you a moment to realize, no, it's not total darkness. There's an oil lamp. It's just really dim. You can see it's lit very, very dim near you. And as you're blinking and your eyes are adjusting and you're looking around, you can make out the figures of your friends laying around you. You can see each of you have been given pillows and blankets. And for a moment, you know you're arrested. And then, as you're looking around, you're not in a cell. You're in a room. A nice room, from what you can tell. Your fingers touch a nice carpet or rug. And the room itself doesn't smell like mold or must like you're used to. What would you like to do?
I think it takes Ephid a few moments to open their eyes. They haven't been like cradled and carried like whatever that thing was since they were a child, and I think they kind of hang on to that in the hopes that maybe everything that they've lived through since then has been a terrible dream. And that they're 6 years old again, and they're with their grandmother, and she's carried them to bed and everything's okay. But I think there's a pain in their arm that they recognize. And as they sit up, kind of woozy, and see all of their friends in a much nicer room than they have any right to be in, I think they just kind of start crawling towards Fishgut, because Fishgut is the closest thing to comfort.
You're noticing as well, your arm has been cast, and it's in a sling. And as you're crawling over, you're Fishgut, you're woken up by Ephid.
Oh, what was that? Oh. What was that?
We're somewhere different. We're somewhere different. I realized we would always be somewhere, but we're somewhere different.
Right. And I think Fishgut kind of instinctually just kind of reaches out to throw her arms around Ephid and just give them a squeeze. The room doesn't
like
feel real.
Already leaning into it.
And it just, I think, puts a hand in their hair. That the room doesn't feel real, but if it does, that's good. Right, we should wake up the others. And Fishgut will kind of touch her body, looking for the cube. Does she still have it?
No.
We have to tell them Harlow's dead.
No, she's not dead. Well,
Fishgut.
Go get her later.
Then.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready to lose her.
Me either.
You're right, though.
I tried
to
stop it. I tried to move so she didn't get hurt, and then I think I made it worse. I think it's my fault.
Nope. Stop that. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Like my fault.
Yeah, I get that. I feel it too. But doesn't mean it's right. God, I wish I had better words than that right now, but it's hard because she's gone. And Fishgut is kind of, I think, holding Ephid with one hand and then kind of reaching over to push Gracie awake. Not as gently as the wake up that Fishgut got.
That's probably fair. It wouldn't have worked anyway. I feel like she jumps when she wakes, almost as if to like hit anybody that's like in the proximity, which probably happens every time you wake her up, so like you would know. But she looks around, shocked and confused, and sees the two of you, and then sees Turk, who was stuck back, and then looks around for Harlow's body. Is it there?
You do not see Harlow's body. You do notice, looking at Turk, there is a nasty wound, like, on his eyebrow, like the side of his eye, but it has been, like, butterfly stitched as well.
Gracie will momentarily just put her head in her hands and just, out of frustration, probably just growl. And then she stands up and shakes Turk, also probably not as gently as Fishgut got. But not, like, violently. She's just not good at delicacies. And she'll just start pacing the room.
Turk sits up with a start, and I think does the same thing that everyone else has done. Looks around, takes in the surroundings, reaches up, touches the wound on his head, feels the stitches, and... Where are we?
I like to think that we got our 100 coin and spent it on this place, and that we just don't remember any of the parts in between.
Listen, I've had some mornings where I've had a little bit too much. This does not feel like that. This is something else. And she looks down at her hand. Is the mark still there?
Yes. It is not glowing, but you see it. It's almost like a scar.
Mm. She holds it up. What It burned. Shit.
Barn's good though. I think I don't know what it is. My mind feels really clear, really sharp. It's new. I don't mind it.
I'd rather know what it does.
We weren't even together.
Was I imagining it? Was there a thing? Something was carrying you. And she looks over at Evid.
I was trying to get out of the way because I knew you were gonna come kick some ass, but they just picked me up, and then I just kept going up. And then we were here. Hang on, and I'm gonna start like crawling over to the oil lantern and try and turn it up so it gets a bit brighter, so we can kind of see our surroundings a little better.
Are there windows also?
As the oil lantern is brightened, you're able to see the room a little bit more. This looks similar to like high-end levels of town. Turk would probably recognize or feel a little better about it in here. The rest of you have probably never been in a room this nice before. Fancy, there's no rug, but there are fancy carpets and like multiple places in this room. You see one large table that has, now that this oil lantern has been brightened, you see food on the table waiting for you. You see a pitcher of water. You see a couple just other drinks that you don't even probably know what they are. You can see where you were sleeping. Seems to be on like one solid, like almost puffy rug that you've just been given blankets and pillows to. There is a door, one door leading out of this room, and beside that door there is a little table that has, it looks like a couple other like oil lamps on it, but they're not lit or anything. You do see windows. There are 2 windows on the wall opposite of the door. The curtains are drawn currently. And it looks really regal in here.
And I don't trust it.
Fuck.
With the lights turned up, Turk looks around again and you had Harlow with you.
Yeah.
Where is she?
Where do you think?
Turk doesn't seem capable of forming words. He, takes a step back. He's very unsteady on his feet and ends up next to one of those tables and just sort of, leans on it. And then I think just very suddenly throws it to the side as hard as he can. Smashing whatever's on top of it against the wall.
Not your fault either, if that's what you're thinking. You were asleep when I gave you for the talk.
You want to smash something else? Won't change anything.
It's not ours. Or maybe it is. So keep the smashing to a minimum.
And there's no way 100 gold would have gotten us this far.
You sure? So I don't think I've ever seen more than 5 at once. Maybe it adds together.
I feel like this is too fancy for even that.
Probably.
What do you think, Gracie? You've seen more coin than the rest of us. Is 100 gold worth?
I don't fucking know, man. This is beyond my... Listen, I'd got some good fights in me, but this is... I don't know how they'd get me in the front door. Any of us. Oh shit. And she like because she got shot last time.
Yes, you
so
see
she
that wound.
suddenly
It
realizes.
hurts. Yeah, it hurts a lot, but in the way that like a properly cleaned wound just fucking hurts. It's been cleaned, stitched, and bandaged.
I've been in places
Right.
like this before.
You? Pretty
course.
boy. How didn't realize the militia paid that well.
Doesn't.
Hmm.
Sometimes you gotta make a little extra coin.
Any of those people kind enough to scoop up and save 4 little miscreants?
No. No, there's no loyalty.
There's some. And I think they'll kind of look between the others.
Turk is like breathing hard. Like panic attack. Breathing hard.
I think Gracie goes in front of him and just puts her giant hands on his shoulders and just, what? Take a breath. This is fucked up, but we'll get out of it together.
Turk is gonna put a hand, like shove Gracie away, like put a hand on your shoulder and just shove you away and say, you don't understand.
Then fucking make me understand.
It is my fault. It's my fault. 'Cause I was in a place like this not that long ago. Job went bad. I needed money. There was this aristocrat, rich lady used to request me for her security detail. Militia happened all the time. Militia turned a blind eye to it. They didn't care as long as the rich people were happy. Only I'm not in the militia anymore, and she couldn't request me. And he's gonna look Gracie dead in the eye. Fully expecting, maybe wanting her to beat the shit out of him, as he says. So I wrote down my address and left it with her.
Gracie closes her eyes and her fists clench. And you can see her jaw as she's like gritting her teeth. I'm gonna roll something. I'm just gonna roll.
I think in the flash of this moment too,
Yeah.
there's just a flash of like Harlow's face in the safe house just before the gunshot.
That makes sense based on the under 10 I rolled. And she fucking pounds him right in the face, right in the nose. She wants to hear the crack. And then whatever is nearby, she will throw against the wall and just scream. We told you. We fucking told you. Nobody. Not one person. And you went and told some fucking rich girl?
Give him another. Or the kids he suggested might have ratted us out because maybe they knew.
She
I'll
kicks him
fucking
in the
dare
ribs.
you, Turk.
I think he might look up, like he gets kicked in the ribs and then he falls, like goes sprawling, I think, and kind of like gets back up to his feet almost and like looks up at Gracie and says, "Is that all you got?
I trusted you.
Thought you were good at this."
We'll give him what he wants.
She pulls back to give him another, and then she just shrugs and goes and punches a hole in the wall instead and points at him and says, "Kicking your ass, range in your face. It ain't gonna bring her back."
Using Gracie to punish yourself isn't going to fix anything either.
And if Harlow was here, she'd tell us we were all better than it.
Yeah, she only let me hit you once when you fucked up last time.
Yeah, well, look where that got us.
Fuck it. Militia. She spits.
At this point, you hear the door open. The door opens and you see a figure first peek in after hearing all of the crashing and yelling. There is just a little peek of like making sure that it's done. And then you see a man, very tall, skinny, but in a way where you're not actually sure how skinny because of the amount of like draping black clothes that he is wearing. His black hair is slicked back, but there's like a couple strands that hang down in his face. He walks in, closes the door behind him, and kind of puts his hands up in a very gentle surrender. Are we done breaking stuff?
That depends. Who the fuck are you?
They'll probably do it more later.
He smiles. I assure you, I mean you no harm. My name is Killian Blackford. What are your names?
Gracie Williams.
Bishgut.
Ephid. Turk might not be able to talk around his bloody nose.
Doesn't matter.
He just seems to be like currently eyes just scanning all of you, as if giving you the upper hand in the situation, not advancing on you, just kind of seeing where you're at, basically. But he just stands. Yeah.
So, do we have you to thank for all of this and this? And she points to, the gunshot wound and getting us out.
I saw you were in a bit of distress.
Wow.
That's a word.
I've been watching. I posted the task of acquiring the item that I believe caused all that chaos in the streets.
Yeah.
The blue light filling the streets of Duskwall tells me the item was activated. Yes?
Uh-huh.
And then you took it from us when you moved us here? So it's yours now and we get our money.
He reaches in, pulls the cube from a pocket. You've, bonded with it, attuned, in a sense. The cube is useless now, its power has been expended, but you're welcome to have it back.
Along with 100 gold. Your posting didn't say anything about the condition it got back to you in.
I certainly didn't have to save your lives either.
But you did.
You got it? I did. Because I believe... Allow me to explain. And he does, toss the cube back over to you if you want it. He just kind of tosses it. Raw power. Magic. Contained in various items during the Cataclysm. You know of the Cataclysm, yes? The old world was full of magic until something siphoned it all away one day and caused a brass city to plummet from the sky, taking away our sun. Now, this raw power was stored in this cube, but it has been consumed by you. However, I do not believe our dealings need to be completed just yet. The magic inside of that cube was supposed to be used for a very specific purpose. I would like for our arrangement to be extended. I would like to hire you for that very specific purpose.
Our fee is 100 gold paid in advance, followed by, I don't know how much, 100 more gold paid afterwards.
Is that all?
Each.
5 each.
Done. Done.
Shit.
And I will grant you whatever you wish in return once it's finished, if you see your efforts deserve a little bit more.
Wait, we're agreeing something that we don't even know what we're agreeing to, and I, for one, am tired of that happening. So I would like to know specifically what you want us to do before we say yes.
Of course. And you see him lean back against the small table that's up against the wall and at the door in here. Leans back against the table. The purpose that I have in mind would benefit all of us. It may even benefit you more than it would benefit me. The job I would like to hire you for is to kill Avery Kingsley. And upon doing so, I will take power once he is dead. I will grant you immunity from his guards. And as I said, whatever you wish in return.
You're fucking kidding, right? She looks at everyone else. That's a fucking suicide mission.
It would be. It would be, if not for the marks on your hands. See, they grant you a bit of an advantage against the average person. And you see in that moment, it's almost as like the shadows in the corners of the room move to him. And you see that smoky figure that you had seen picking up Ephid. You see him disappear in a puff of smoke and reappear on the other side of the room. You see him sitting in one of the armchairs. He reaches over and he grabs a loaf of the bread that sits there and starts eating.
No, that's bullshit. Our friend had a mark too. Didn't save her.
I did not. I'm sorry, I could not bring her with us. You're not immortal. You just have options.
How do we know you should be in charge? Kingsley's a shit, but you might be worse.
I think the important thing is I won't be worse for you. Define worse. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid I will do that Kingsley doesn't? Kingsley rips people from their homes, their places they are living, simply because They do not pay to live there when Kingsley doesn't do anything about trying to get them to a place where they can pay to live there. Executing is quicker, easier. I think that's a waste of bullets and blood.
Can we talk about it? Can you fuck off? And we can talk about it.
Of course. Should you accept? And he stands up and tosses the bread down and brushes off his fingers as he is heading towards the door again. Should you accept, supplies will be shipping here from Dunwall, and I suggest you lay low until they arrive. These supplies will explain a few things, and I hope for all of our sake that you accept. You are free to use this room as you please. He motions and then sees the hole in the wall, and there's like a little flinch, but he covers it up pretty quickly. You're safe here. You may not trust me, but I do hope you trust that.
Before he leaves, can Fishgut study him, kind of watching the way he speaks, trying to get a measure for his intentions? Is he purposely sending us on a death mission so our magic goes back into the cube so that he can reabsorb it? Is he honestly trying to get us to go do a mission he thinks we have the skills for? What's the vibe here?
What would you like to roll for that?
Study cleverly?
Yeah.
Maybe quietly. She's pretty guarded, but think pretty clearly, staring him down. On the streets, it would be a lot more... It would be more common for people to just have a staring match, and she kind of has that vibe with him now. So, study cleverly. My target number is a 12.
I'm going to say you need 2 successes for this.
Okay. I would like to have a 6 on 1 die. Can I use one of our momentum points to re-roll?
Yeah, you can buy 1 die with that.
I'll buy... Come on. Let's go. That's a 9. So 2 successes.
2 successes.
Nice.
There is a moment he grabs the doorknob, opens the door, looks over, meets direct eyes with Fishgut for a solid 3 beats, and then heads out the door. You hear it close. The scene is yours, and I think, Fishgut, for a moment, you're sitting there almost like deciphering the body language and the eye contact.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Could it be so bad? He has a point. Everything's bad already.
Even if he... all we have to go off of is his word. The militia exists to guard, protect, enforce for people like him.
Against
And I have
what?
never heard of him before.
I mean, to be fair, Turk, I think we've learned that your senses are not exactly ideal when it comes to those people.
Take all the shots you want. I deserve them. But if this guy was in any way poised to be a threat to Kingsley, I'd at least know his name.
Where the fuck did he come from?
I don't know where he came from, but he certainly does think that cube has the power to do something. He really does think we can do this.
I mean, he just fucking teleported across the room. But
maybe what he has isn't enough. He said that there's other things with power in him. Maybe he wanted this one so bad because it has enough to, I don't know, give us all the juice he'd need to go do it himself. I also do think that if we die, the juice will go back into the cube, so that helps him too. But there's 4 of us and 1 of him. I don't know, I don't think he's trying to dick us over. Not on purpose. Anyways.
Doesn't matter if he believes what he's saying. The question is what happens afterwards.
You're not wrong. Learned a little something about that today.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust him far as I can throw him. Even if I can throw him pretty far. The fact that he's offering clemency afterwards... yeah, right.
Well, I mean, why would he prosecute us? We got him where he wants to be.
Who said prosecute?
Pushkat's right. He kills us, he gets all his power back.
Right.
If we die on the job, it's done for him. If we don't, he does it himself afterwards.
But we'd be more powerful than him, right? We have all the cubes. Juice, as Fishka called it.
If ours was the only one. Or if he's the only one like him. Maybe there are others.
He might be strong enough to do this himself now. He just doesn't want to.
Some people don't like getting their hands dirty.
I mean, what's our other option then? Doesn't seem like we have much of one. The militia's looking for us. Our home is destroyed. The person who told us where and how to live is gone. What do we do? There's a safe place to be. There's food on a table. And there's a chance for things to get better. I thought I was going to die this morning or this evening or wherever, whenever. I don't know. I don't have anything except for you guys. And I'd rather not be running for the rest of however long we have left. But that's just my opinion.
I said my mind feels a little bit sharper. I think there is something to him thinking this supercharged us or whatever. Hell, we were gonna get 100 gold for that cube. Turn our lives into something. We come back, it sounds like he can give us anything we want. I know what I want. It's worth me saying yes.
I think when you say that, Gracie's eyes go very wide and she starts searching herself frantically and realizes what she's looking for is not there. And she turns away, kind of hands on her hips, just kind of shaking her head. If we're gonna do this. She looks over her shoulder at Turk. No more fuck-ups. No more telling anybody our secrets. No one else knows shit. You understand? You are loyal to us and us alone. Nobody else. It's the only way we survive.
Do whatever you want. I'm done trying to survive anyway. That's what got me here.
No,
I'll walk out that
bullshit.
door.
No, you fight to survive. You understand? Because if you're thinking otherwise, we're all fucked. So you're gonna fight to survive with us. Together. Because that's what Harlow would have wanted. Because you fuck up, you fuck up. And you learn from it, and you fucking move on.
I think at this point, Turk, you kind of remember that night, the night after that mission that went bad, while everyone else was sleeping in various parts of the safe house and you and Harlow were talking. You just have the faintest memory of Harlow looking over to you with cold eyes that soften only for a moment as she says, "You owe them that. You owe them more." And then you blink and see Gracie in front of you.
Yeah. I'm in. Do whatever you tell me.
She picks up a linen napkin, nicer than anything she's ever seen, and throws it at his face. You're bleeding.
Now everyone ate something. I don't care how fucking poisoned it is. Maybe we're immune to that too. We're gonna deal with this. At least her stomach should be full.
I don't think I've seen bread this nice fucking ever.
I don't know what half this shit is or what the little bits are on top of it.
Little green things.
Tastes real good though.
Yeah.
So the other half lives.
Why is there like crumbs on this white stuff? Like it looks like nuts, but they're like tiny.
Did you know there was this much sugar? Anywhere? There's like a pot of it.
Evan's fully gonna just like dip a spoon in the pot of sugar and just eat like a full spoonful of sugar. Does it count as eating if I just eat this whole thing?
I
think they're just gonna take it and like in their little slinged hand cup the sugar and just like hunch in a corner.
I think Turk is like staring down at the mark on his hand and he's just seeing if he can like make something happen. He's trying to see if he can make it do something.
Go ahead, and I would like for you to just roll me I'm gonna have you roll study, and I will let you pick what style you're doing it in.
Okay. Study carefully. I'll study carefully.
Okay.
Target number is 9. I got a 1 and a 5.
A 1 is a critical success, and a
Yeah.
5, holy shit. Okay, so in that case, you would have 2 momentum points there, because you only needed a 1 for this. But, there's a moment where we see everyone kind of like, we hear dishes moving and clanking as different food is being pulled to different places, and we just see that kind of blurs, and we just focus on Turk in kind of the background, studying his hand, studying this scar, this symbol. And as you're looking at it, you're seeing that where there are like corners to the symbols, where there are angles at all, you almost see almost like they're dots, almost like constellations, sort of. You almost see like a connect the dot kind of situation happening. And you just get this feeling that you definitely don't have anything like this, but you feel like certain items or objects could be placed within those dots. If not physically, then the best way you can think of it is like Ephid's weird tendrils.
Okay.
There are more parts to this
Yeah.
than what is on your skin.
Got it. Okay. But nothing happens. Like
Nothing happens.
Cool. Okay. All right. Neat.
And you look up from your hand and you see mouths just like cheeks stuffed with sugar from Ephid.
I think
Ephid's a little further in the corner, and in their only show of aggression towards Turk, they're gonna just full like fastball like a loaf of bread at him and hit him in the face.
I would like to say that he infuriatingly catches it.
There's like a flicker of just absolute like childish irritation. Ephid isn't childish very often, but there is a moment of like, you motherfucker, on their face. And then they don't really even say anything. I think they just glare at you a little bit and go back to their bowl of sugar.
I think you get face full of bread, and then Gracie just slams a plate just piled with food. She has no idea what half of this shit is, but she put a bunch of it on the plate. And just gives you a nod, not unlike Harlow probably gave you. And then she sits away because she's still mad. But
can I look around this room? Because he talked about like other items of magical power. I think once my stomach starts hurting from all the sugar that I've been eating, Ephid's gonna stand up and they're gonna realize that they can't use both of their crutches. And so they'll just pick up one and slide it onto their right arm, and they'll really slowly start making their way around the room and looking at just like decorations, vases, anything that's in there. I think they're just kind of looking it over and trying to get a taste of like, is this one of the magical things he was talking about? Is there anything? Are there books? Just kind of looking out for magical stuff, because this isn't the first time they've heard about magic, but I think this is the first time they've had like free reign in a place where there actually might actively be more pieces of it.
Mm-hmm. I think taking some time and looking through the room, you don't find any other like artifacts or items that really stand out to you. But then again, the cube is in this room, and the cube doesn't stand out to you now either. So it's kind of hard to tell. But you do see a little bookshelf. There are a few books. A lot of them are fiction. A lot of them are books that maybe you've seen before. They're not in the best state, but you do see some that are a little nicer, that are more of like the history of the town, and a book explaining everything we know about the Cataclysm, which is not much, but it's just a bunch of people that think they know what they're talking about putting a book together. Stuff you've heard before. That, once upon a time there was magic until it disappeared from the world, the sun fell from the sky, and you've lived in darkness ever since.
Once Ephid's kind of made their rounds, I think they're going to take the like prettiest, kind of most fairy tale looking book, and they're just going to kind of tuck it in one of their pockets, and then start gathering shards of anything that broke when Gracie and Turk were having their feelings. And they're just going to start like gathering anything sharp or any little bit of something that might be useful later and start putting them in a different pocket.
Is there paper, pens, pencils, anything of that variety in here?
Yeah, I think there's like one like flip style notebook on one of the tables.
Gracie will grab it. And usually back at the hideout, she would do this very privately, but there's not really any space for privacy here, ironically enough. And she starts drawing Harlow. And none of you have ever probably seen her art because she's very secretive, except for maybe Effid because they would sneak peeks when Gracie was not looking. But she's like, it's hyper realistic. She does not look like an artist, but it is. Harlow looks alive, and that is what she spends the evening doing.
Is there a window?
There are 2 windows. The curtains are drawn.
Turk will just be at one of them, I think, to kind of pull the curtain back, and I'd like to see if I can place where in the city we are, based on, like, skyline and landmarks and stuff.
Okay. You are not in, like, the highest end part of the city, but you're, like, if the rich people were ranked 1, 2, and 3, you're sitting at a solid 2, like a very comfortable 2.
Fishgut eats, trying a little bit of everything on the table, but when Gracie starts drawing and kind of keeps drawing, and it just kind of keeps going for a while, Fishgut will find her way over, kind of sidle up near her, but not too close. Can I watch?
Gracie does not look up, but she just shrugs. If you want, I guess.
It's good. Looks just like her.
She always had that look, that determination, and I'm trying to get it just right.
Fishka just nods, smiles a bit, and will, I think, post up, kind of lean against the wall, looking over Gracie's shoulder, and just enjoys watching her try to get that look right.
And I think we see the evening kind of push on. A few hours later, Killian comes back. He doesn't try to talk to you unless you try to talk to him. He's not demanding an answer or anything right now, but you see him actually like carrying in mattresses. One at a time, one by one, he's carrying in mattresses for you. And after he carries 4 of them in, he comes in again and he's just holding a box. Just a cardboard box. He walks in, sets them down, makes eyes with anyone who's looking, pats the box, stands up and leaves the room.
Gracie pulls herself up and goes to the box, puts herself between everyone in case it explodes, and opens it up.
You open this box and you see an array of items. You see some clothes that look like they may fit you, all of you, just various clothing. You see a brand new set of what look like crutches that are, they fold up and like extend. Very shiny and silver. You see your sketchbook. And any items that were in the safe house that an outsider would have thought looked important. Like, there's no... If the clothes were too full of holes, he just left them. But things that could have been taken, you see your belongings in this box.
With Gracie's back to the room, you see her shoulders stiffen, and she wipes something off of her face as if she's crying, as she holds the book in her hand. and then just straightens up and moves the box to the middle of the room where everyone else is, and hands the crutches to Ephid.
A lot of effort to go to if he's gonna kill us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Turk takes his stuff out, but, like, kind of hesitates before picking up his guns again. But he will.
You should get some sleep. A long fucking day.
Yeah, I'm sure we're all going to be sleeping at night.
Yeah. Gracie's right, though. I hate to say it, but we need some rest. And hey, if we're lucky, dream of Harlow. That big smile.
Gracie drags a mattress in front of the door, and that's where she sleeps.
Evid kind of looks around for the mattresses that are closest together and takes the one next to the wall, and then kind of hobbles over to Fishgut. Is it rude if I don't use these crutches? I don't
Not
like
at all.
them. They're too shiny. I got stuff in my old ones that.
Strip them for parts. Turn them into something more interesting.
And I think that's what Ephid does for the rest of the night, like curled up in a corner. I think they've got like some kind of fruit next to them, cut up into pieces, really like shoddily. And they're just pulling the crutches apart, like taking springs out and like all the screws and bolts. The handles are kind of and eventually it's just like all these parts that they've kind of set in different piles of like pieces around their mattress, and they fall asleep like back in a corner, curled in a ball with all the little like pieces that they've broken apart taking up most of their mattress.
I think Turk manages to hold off until he's reasonably confident that the others are asleep, but anyone who is up very late or does not sleep at all would eventually, I think, just hear him sobbing quietly, just very, like, suppressed, trying to contain it.
Fishgut never really sleeps that much. She's so used to watching other people. And she'll take a seat on the edge of Turk's mattress, very quietly, trying not to make the springs creak. She won't touch him, but she'll sit down close and just very quietly be near. And you'd hear a soft, similar sob here and there. Are we able to do some planning for the mission that he's asked of us?
He has mentioned some supplies that are coming in will help with that planning, such as blueprints and persons of interest and things like that. Like, he is getting you as much as he can. So that part of the planning process wouldn't be until after those supplies came in, but anything else you would like to do, yeah.
Fish gets pretty annoyed when she finds out blueprints and the like aren't coming, because that's what she wanted. That would have been helpful to look at during this time. So she isn't able to come up with anything that he hasn't already thought of.
I think when Ephid isn't tinkering and building things and then taking them apart because they think of a better way to do it and building them back up only to take them apart again. I think they're trying to remember anything that their grandmother told them in all the old stories about magic and how it works and how maybe their juice abilities might manifest themselves or be made useful, because they know that like going into something not knowing what something does is way more dangerous than going into a job with nothing. So I think they're going to spend a lot of time trying to learn how their new whatever it is works.
And I think while doing that, you kind of, over time, not all at once, come to the same conclusion that Turk did. You're missing something. There's something that goes with this symbol, or you're not sure, but it's almost like this just constant feeling of like you're forgetting something. There's just this missing chunk, this missing thing that you need, and you just don't know what it is. I will say, as you've taken apart the crutches that were given to you, with just, it has various capabilities in terms of like it could fold up, it could kind of like just collapse in on itself, various different ways to like carry the crutches. But there was something strange about them. On the left-hand side, there were a couple of indentions that didn't quite make sense. And as you were studying it, you realize like that plate itself comes off. There's a plate that you can take off of these crutches that have various indentions in them. You have no idea what they're for, but you do have that at your disposal.
I think Ephid takes those plates and like finds a way to install them on their old crutches. Still not sure what they do. The right one has something that it already does, which is the main reason that Ephid was very reticent to get rid of their old crutches, besides, like nostalgic value. But I think they'll just transfer left to left and start like trying to like flip it over and like feel the indentions and just see if they can work out what it does and what it'll, if it can be transferred to their left crutch.
So what I'm imagining is that I think for a few days, Turk is like not a person, like just spends a lot of time laying there or like staring at the window or just staring at a wall sometimes. And then in my mind, I'm imagining that at some point Gracie yells at him about it. And I think since then he has basically like been Gracie's shadow. And just like they like he'll bicker with Gracie, but like 100% just follows orders, like does whatever she tells him to, does whatever she asks him to do. Outside of that, did they give me my guns, or are these new guns?
They are your guns, but you
Okay.
do see their extra ammunition was included as well.
Cool. All right. Then yeah, I mean they're like extensions of his arms, he knows them perfectly.
I think Gracie is not one to be cooped up. After a couple of days, she probably snaps at Turk because she has been pacing and doing fucking push-ups and sit-ups and just like exercising, but like we're stuck in a time. We all know the feeling of being stuck inside. And she goes a little stir crazy, and that's when the snap happens of just we're all fucking on edge. I don't need your fucking face like this.
Why don't you tell me where you want my face then?
She blushes. Just a little. We're good. We move on. And as he starts to kind of follow her around, maybe it's a matter of maybe sparring of some kind of like she's practicing disarming, he's practicing keeping them in hand, like stuff like that, and just trying to keep busy because she is not one to sit idle, and this is driving her bananas.
Fishgut is feeling very similarly cooped up. She's used to moving around the city, going from their hideout to the docks and other locations where she knows people and can schmooze and talk with folks. But physical outlets aren't really her thing. She does enjoy watching the two spar. She definitely hangs around and watches Ephid tinker with different things. Fishgut will swipe items from around the mansion or from wherever we're allowed to move in this space and give them to them, like a fancy clock with some cool looking gears, other items, and they'll just kind of find their way next to where they're sleeping. And then a couple days in, she's rifling through one of the rooms and comes back to Grace and Turk, or Gracie and Turk. Hey, look, deck of cards. It's not missing anything or nothing. It's even got the jokers in it. I know a couple games. And Fishgut will make them play cards with her. She'll ask Aoife to join when they're free. And she'll teach them some of the games she's learned from the sailors.
Gracie is not good at it, but she tries, gosh darn it.
I imagine at a certain point it's like Turk and Fishgut seeing who can cheat better.
And probably make sure that it's to see who can cheat better between the two without Gracie or Ethan noticing that the cheating is occurring. And I think a separate second game develops between Fishgut and Turk.
I think there are several nights that Ephid wakes up from nightmares about Harlow. And doesn't necessarily want anyone else to notice or know. So I think part of the time they kind of just take to prowling the house as well, nicking little objects like Fishgut had done for them. And I think they'll find just shiny things and start leaving them for Fishgut too, like a little magpie. But on other nights when they don't really feel like wandering, I think they're going to start stealing bits of Turk's ammunition and emptying out the black powder and trying to pack new kinds of bullets for him. And like adding little changes to his rifles. Nothing crazy significant. Just a couple little things. I don't think they're gonna say anything unless Turk says something to them. They're not gonna mention it. They're just gonna keep, it's not every night. It's like 2 or 3, 4 nights. Just some special little things, just in case. And I think the only notice that Turk would have would be that the special bullets that they've started making are like lined up in a row, separate from all the rest.
I think he doesn't think twice about the bullets, but I think when he picks up his rifle the first time after, if it has made some changes to it, he knows, he can tell right away that the balance has changed. It's heavier in one spot than it used to be. It's throwing everything off. And I think there would have been a moment where he was looking around and he was all right, who? And then if he saw even trying not to not meeting his gaze, not making eye contact with him, I think he would have figured it out and would have just been never mind. My mistake.
I love this terrible little family. And I think the whole mansion itself has gradually, you can decide per your character, but I think it's one of those, like, you know, like when you first go to a friend's house and like you're only in their room because that's where you belong. But then the more that you go over there, the more you're used to the living room and the kitchen and the rest of the. It's kind of like that within these 2 weeks. At first, you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to leave this room. And then you realize nobody is holding you here. And there's this, oh, I'm just gonna see what the hallway is like. Oh, I'm just gonna go into this room. I'm gonna go downstairs. Oh my gosh, this house is huge. And there's this gradual, like, learning of the mansion that you are in. And while it is large and furnished, there's no personality in it. It looks like this mansion was purchased for the sole purpose of just holding up in for a little while. And Killian's around often, but makes it a point to not be in the room with you if he doesn't feel like it's necessary. If you're not speaking to him, he'll just walk into the other room. Sometimes he disappears in smoke. If you don't seem bothered by his being there, he'll stay, but he's quiet. He doesn't speak to you first. He waits for you to speak to him if you want to have a conversation. He knows you're from two very different worlds, and he may be one of the few people that knows just what you've been through before getting to this moment. One morning, about 2 weeks later, there is a little knock on the door from where you are sleeping, and you just hear Killian say through it, "Delivery's here."
Gracie moves the mattress that she is sleeping on out from in front of the door and opens it.
Killian motions behind him. "The crate's too big, you'll have to go downstairs. But it's all yours. Feel free to look it over."
Oh shit, I thought you meant the waffles I asked for this morning.
He squints at you for a moment, and then you see him hold out his hand, and literally in a puff of smoke, a plate of waffles appears. "Do you mean these?"
That crate better let me do that. And Fishcat will take the plate and start walking downstairs.
He just puts his hands behind his back and, like, gets out of the way to let you guys pass. Head downstairs?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You do see one of those just large, like, wooden shipping crates in the middle of, like, the living room. The table has been pushed out of the way. This crate is pretty massive, and there's just a, like, crowbar sitting beside it waiting for you, Gracie.
I like that it's not anyone else. Yeah, she pops it open.
Yeah, you wrench open this crate. You find 5 different, like, packages within. They are all labeled. You see one is labeled weapons, one is labeled armor, one is labeled gear, one is labeled bone charms, and one is labeled runes.
Those last two sound so cool, but I know Evan would go for the gear.
Weapons. I feel like Gracie pulls the runes and bone charms and sets them in front of Fishgut.
And those are very small boxes. Those are very small boxes. The weapons box is large, taking up the majority of this crate. The gear box takes up most of the rest of it. And then you have the armor is like a more medium-sized box, but the bone charms and the runes, tiny boxes. Very, very small. Ripping all of these things open, in the weapons box you see 2 beautiful but functional swords with like brass handles. They're shaped a lot like a kitchen knife, but they're massive. They are the size of a long sword. You see 2 knives with wooden and brass handles to a point like a switchblade. You see 1 mace. It's brass and wood as well, and you see a sharp steel edge at the bald end of it. There's 1 pistol. It does not resemble yours, Turk. This is a very different design. It's more flamboyant, I think is the correct word. It's just very steampunk exclamation point. And you see it functions differently as well. There's some sort of chamber with some sort of oil in it that you can see kind of like sloshing around a little bit. There is 1 crossbow. You see brass and wood stylings on it as well. You see this crossbow just folds up to basically like the size of a folded up umbrella. This crossbow folds up very well. And in the box of armor, you see various just treated cloths. You see different mantle coats that you could have, and you see some helmets. All of those are more for functionality than they are for appearance, but you see they're all dark. They're like a dark blue to the point where it's almost black. But they all seem to be enough to match your sizes. In the gear, Ephid, you find burglar's tools, which is, there's like a couple different sizes of like a pry bar. You see lock picks, all again designed with this like fancy brass color. You see 2 sets of climbing gear. It is a sturdy pack with useful tools such as like a grappling hook, chalk dust. You see a disguise kit. 1 kit, but it has many uses. It helps hide scars or any like distinguishing features, such as, you know, symbols on your hands or whatever. There's fine clothing in here as well, the fancy stuff that you've only seen the rich folks wear. And you see 4 forged papers. You have forged proof of residency for the capital, in case you get caught on the street. Basically paper saying that you legally live in this house that you're in right now. As for the other 2 packages, with the bone charms and the runes, there are notes on these. As you open it up, there are little pieces of paper inside. Which one do you open first, bone charms or runes?
Runes.
Perfect. You open the box of runes, and the note says, "Study the runes to learn how to harness your new abilities. Disperse them wisely." And you see within this box, very small, but you see 40 runes. Small stones, but you see the little runes carved into them. They glow, just like you saw on the box that you took, just like you saw on the back of your hand. There's this slight glow to them. Mechanically, you have 40 runes, and you will be able to use these to purchase power enhancements. Opening the bone charms, a note says, "You've probably never seen these before. These are carved from ivory and bone, the bones of the leviathans that power these very walls. Very rare to acquire. Consider this a second down payment on your earnings." And you see inside are 4 small trinkets. They look like they were carved out of bone and like interwoven with twine, string, brass rods. There are notes attached to each explaining what each of them help with. And you will all only be able to choose one. Once chosen, you must wear it or keep it somewhere on your person, on something. Like, you could keep it on your gun, you could keep it on your crutch if you wanted to. It's just got to be attached to you in some way.
Gracie, can I, at some point, can I see your knuckle dusters?
Pull them out of my pocket and hand them over.
You'll get these back later. And Effie just like squirrels them away in one of their in one of their pockets.
If it's half as good as that thing that you put together for my fights, you do what you need to do. I bring the box over also to Fishgut.
She'll take the crossbow.
I think Turk will take one of the swords, too. Like, can't hurt.
Gracie
that ruined
pulls
one
out.
of my surprises for you. Effie's gonna like reach over to one of his rifles and like smack the butt of it on the ground. And there's like a shing, and there's what looks like was once a fire poker, but is now like sharpened and long, and it just kind of like shoots out of a part of like a not the barrel itself, but like you notice that they've done something to the bottom of the barrel that like there's an extra little pocket.
Jesus Christ. Kind of reach over and like gingerly take it. And
It's
how
easy.
do you make it?
And they'll like smack the butt on the ground again, and it goes and
Okay.
folds back in.
All right. Easy. Thank you.
In case you run out of ammo or someone gets too close. You have a habit of that, so. Not the ammo, the people getting too close.
Yeah, well.
I'll have other things for you, Fishgut. Don't worry. I'm still working on it.
Excited for whatever it is.
And I think there's a moment, Fishgut, you kind of glance just into the crate to make sure there's nothing else, and you see kind of folded up at the base of it, hidden behind these packages, you see what looks like 2 scrolls. They're flattened to kind of hide up against the side of this, but you see 2 different scrolls. And as you take those, you see blueprints of Avery Kingsley's estate. And you see the second one is quite small. It just seems to be like a file almost on someone, a profile for a very specific person of interest. And I'm going to message that specifically to Fishgut.
You got some kind of inspiring speech up your sleeve or what?
Who, me?
No.
I'm not fucking hollow, Turk. I don't got her brains. She pulls out the mace and like hefts it in her hand. But if she were here, she'd say we could do it. And we're gonna do it.
Looks like we're done being listless. We've got blueprints and a profile for someone named Jeffrey Ballard. Never heard the name, but we've got what we need to do to get started.
I fucking have.
That's concerning, but also potentially helpful. And Fishcut will hand the profile over to Turk to inspect more closely.
Yeah, Turk, you take this profile, you look at it. It has shift schedule, patrols, personal info, but more importantly, it has a note attached to it. It, from what you could recognize, is Killian's handwriting. And it says, "Pull the trigger on Harlow."
I think everyone would see Turk reading over this document, and as he does so, like the farther down he gets on it, his other hand pulls out that coin that's dented, And he kind of is just like playing with it in his other hand, sort of flicking it over his fingers and back again. He's going, and as he gets to the end of it, sort of like flips it up into the air and then catches it without looking. Yeah. No more waiting.
Wait, for continuity,
Wonderful.
should I finish my popsicle first? Hang on.
Maybe we could just edit the popsicle into the first half.
Yes.
Okay. Popsicle gone.